So I had you read about the memoir genre and personal narratives. We read chapter 4 for our homework. And I want to talk a little bit about the rhetorical situation and elements of a narrative. This is probably something different than what you're used to writing about, especially in an academic setting. So we're going to explore some of these elements in order to get you to start thinking about how you might craft your Unit 2 project. So narratives, they're stories, right? And we read them and we tell them for different purposes and different audiences. And as we craft them, we in turn get different perspectives on our own stories. And so the purpose is really dependent upon the audience and the intent. For this project, we are adopting a version of NPR's This I Believe assignment. However, we're doing a much larger project. Theirs is 1.5 pages, and I'm asking for at least a minimum of 3 full pages for this. So I'm asking for more in-depth information, and the audience is going to be varied. Right now, we're writing for this class. So go back to the meet and greet section and think about who our class is, what kind of information we need to know, and what kinds of stories would relate to us. What kinds of things would you want to share to either let us know about yourself and your belief, or as a way to connect to each other. So we're thinking about the purpose. For this class, obviously, you think, okay, well, it's just because I want an A, right? I want to get a good grade, I want to pass. But what else? Why would you want to tell a story? Why else would you want to share this narrative? Are you trying to teach a lesson? Are you exploring something maybe from the past and how it relates to the future? Are you sharing a memory that had a very significant impact in your life? Thinking about these things and thinking about how they impact your life today will draw a strong purpose and a strong memoir or narrative. Choosing something that's really flimsy, and this is why everyone should travel, or I love my friends, something that's very light or fluffy, doesn't really tease out some of these elements, and so it makes for a very weak narrative or memoir. So think about the reasons for your choice and how they're going to shape what you're going to write, and pick something that you are invested in, right? That has a purpose that you want to share, to maybe change something in the world, to maybe change someone's perspective, or again, to relate to someone. When you're thinking about your memoir and what you're going to be writing about for your narrative, think about if the audience, if the readers have had a similar experience. If so, how is your story going to differ from their story? How are you going to be able to connect the two? Obviously, you don't know all of our experiences, but some things are more common for people to experience than others. If it's not something that they've experienced, then how are you going to explain it to them and give them enough detail where they'll understand the story itself, the impact it's had on you, and how it continues to be reflected in your life? Will they share the same attitudes or experiences? If you're writing about something that could be relatively controversial or seen in a different light, what leaps do you have to fill? What gaps do you have to fill in order to make them see your point of view and your perspective? And finally, how much are you willing to share? Some stories are more personal than others. Again, I'm not asking for anything personal that you'd be uncomfortable sharing, but it will be personal because this is your story. So how in depth are you going to get in with this? The more you give, the more the reader can relate. So think about your stance. There's a lot of different stances that you can take. If you looked at some of the examples on This I Believe or in the example folder I provided, you'll see that people take different perspectives. Some are very humorous, some are very serious, some have more of a self-critical view, and there's a big difference between self-critical and self-deprecating, right? You don't want to necessarily put yourself down to make yourself seem insignificant, but you can reflect and be critical maybe about your actions or how something happened. We're thinking about medium and design. So for this part, your narrative will be in print. And eventually, you will make a podcast out of this. But you can insert a photo if you feel that you like to. However, that does not change the word count minimum of 750 words. So think about some of the design elements to see if something can be more appropriate for what you would like and the narrative that you are giving us. One of the key elements is to show rather than to tell. And this is really hard to do. We often want to tell, this happened, then this happened, then this happened, then this happened. But that doesn't make a good story. So what are some things that you hear, smell, see, feel? Bring in all the senses when you're working out the elements of detail and description. Who are the key people? What do we need to know about them to make sense of the situation, right? And write about what happened. Really bring in the details, bring in the key elements. And there is some creative nonfiction that goes on because we can't remember everything in exact detail. But do as much as you can to really bring in exactly what happened, how it felt, how people were affected, and how it's significant. So bring in those key details. As far as organization, there are several ways that you can go about organizing. You can go chronologically, starting from the beginning and ending at the end with a slight reflection. Or you can mix it up, right? There's all different ways that we can craft and organize our memories, right? We can kind of start in the middle, go back to the beginning, kind of come back to the middle, move to the end, right? We can start at the end and then go backwards. There's all kinds of ways that we can organize this. Start with what makes sense to you, and then through the revision process, if you want to get more creative and work on organization, you can go from there. So what I want you to do is I want you to listen to the narrative, Listening is Powerful Medicine, and there's a link to that in our learning unit, or you can Google it and pull it up from there. And then I want you to join a conversation and discussion board. I want you to talk about what the essay's purpose is, who the audience is, and don't just say NPR or This I Believe or All of America. Try to do some research. Do a little bit of an audience analysis here to really think about who this audience is. What's the stance or tone of this memoir, this narrative? And who do you imagine this person to be? Why do you think that they're sharing this story? How are they trying to relate to the audience? So go to the discussion board and post your answers there. Join the group, join the conversation. And from here, go check out some of the examples that I've posted in the example folder.